Wayno, thank you so much for jumping on this live.
Oh
Got the
no, thank
numbers
you for
just
having
rocking
me.
out.
Thank you
No,
for
of course. Of course. We see you so much on Everyday Struggle, and
hmm
especially in the UK, I think we would love to just know more about who Wayno is and the creative behind Everyday Struggle as well. So I'm just going to jump straight into it. Like, where did everything start? Where was the beginning of just entering the creative industry?
Wow. Well, my start really came. I'm 37. My start really came around like 18. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really got my start around 18. I started in the mailroom, delivering mail. That's how I really got into the game. I was delivering mail to I got a job and I was delivering mail to Rockefeller Records, Def Jam,
That's
what
mad.
else? Royalty Department. Yeah, a few different places. So what ended up happening was I was the youngest person in there, so I would always
Mm.
like try to help out after work and try to find my way in. But like I wanted to get into music ever since I saw the movie Juice when I was a kid. Like I
How old
wanted to
were
be a,
you? How old were you?
when Juice came out, I think I was probably like 10 or 11.
Okay. Did you
But
know
but I,
what part of the music industry you wanted to do? Do you want to be a rapper, or was it always
well,
like
I wanted to be when I seen Juice, I wanted to be a DJ. So,
okay,
cause Q, like the main person in the movie, he was a DJ. Like one of the main characters, he was a DJ, and I wanted to be a DJ. And
uh,
then a little couple years later, like I tried rapping. Like everybody from my era, like we all tried to rap.
everyone has a mixtape somewhere in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
I ain't got no mixtape, but I definitely wrote raps. Like I wrote raps and stuff. But
Mhm.
like I saw the movie Backstage when I was 17, and that was the first, like that's what made me want to get into it. And then the movie I saw Backstage was about Jay-Z and DMX and the Rough Riders and everybody going on tour.
Yeah,
And ironically, maybe like 8 months later, I get a job delivering mail to these people.
mad.
You know?
The world really like worked in a crazy way. So
Yeah.
from delivering mail, what's your next step? Like, how do you get a foot in the door? Because it's easy
So,
to know
well, the
where's
thing
yeah.
was, it was like, the mail job, the mailroom job, it was really, really good for me because at the time, like I started trying to dibble and dabble in the streets as a teenager, and my mom, she was just really big on wanting me to do something where I wouldn't get in trouble. So, I started doing that, and my next thing was I asked this lady, her name was Omieli McIntosh, and
Mm.
she ran Jay-Z's fan club. It was called Fan Fam. So basically, I would just ask her, could I help out with shipping after work? And she was like, "All right, I'll let you help." And then that led to me just building relationships in the building. I was going to Def Jam, so like I was seeing everybody. I was
Mm.
delivering mail to everybody. All the big execs of today, they was running Def Jam when I was a teenager. So
Yeah,
I did that for a bit, and then I had got fired from the mailroom, right?
as do.
Yeah, I ended up getting fired, and then I just I was kind of stuck again because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a job like at a sneaker store after that for a little bit, but then I just asked my friend Shari. I was like, "Yo, can I come help you out any day?" Like I didn't know what intern it was. I was like, "Can I
Mm.
just come help?" And she was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Absolutely, come in and help us." And then I got an internship. That internship led me to getting a job, and then that was like my real first start, and that was at Rockefeller Records.
That's crazy. And what did you jump into doing? Was it A&Ring? You jumped in and kind of put your
Well,
A&R hat on?
I jumped in doing nothing. I jumped in and
Just being part of the
I was
gang.
getting food for the first 2 months. Like
Okay.
the first 2 months, I was just like, just running errands. Like if
Mm.
somebody needed something picked up, whether it was Biggs or Dame Dash, I would
Yeah.
do it. Or if it was something that the artist needed, like if they came into town and they wanted to get a pair of sneakers, but they didn't want to go to the store, they sent me to do it.
Got
And
you.
then I just was ready and available at any time
Mm.
anybody needed me.
That's what's
And
up.
then one day it just came to, I guess it was the young guns. I was working with the young guns at the time, and we all the same age. So like they didn't really have nothing to do. And I was like, yo, like, let's just start working on mixtape stuff. And then,
Mm.
that got me into a bit of the A&R side.
Amazing. How did you just harness your creative side and A&Ring skills? Like, did you feel like it came naturally? Was it something you tried to watch and
I
learn
did
on the job?
I didn't know what A&R was. I just know like every time I used to buy an album, I would read credits, right? Like I would just read credits and I would just like see names, and then I seen the movie Backstage and I would see names. I didn't know what an A&R, I didn't know what anything was. It just was like I know I wanted to work on music, and I used to, as a fan, have all these ideas like, for freestyles. Why didn't they pick
Mm-hmm.
this beat? Like, why don't they rap on this beat? Why don't they do this? And then like my skills came, like it was like on the job learning. You know, I always equated to like boxing. Like, you know, if you boxing and you keep getting hitting your head, you got to figure out how to duck. So it was like I had a long time of just getting hit in the head, and it was like, okay, duck and then come back with something. And it was like me ducking and coming back with something was basically like coming up with ideas to make mixtapes or ideas to make records, stuff like that.
What was one of the hardest ducks that you had to take?
The hardest what?
The hardest duck, like the hardest kind of lesson.
Oh, the hardest lesson. The hardest lesson that I learned on my, like at the point where I'm growing is to like mind your business. You know, like that was something that I didn't really, because I was a young kid, I was trying to be in everything. Like, yo, like what's going on here? What's going on there? What's going on here? And I did, because I wasn't applying nothing from the streets into what, and it is totally different, but it was just like, just minding my business and being and waiting until it's my time. Like waiting until you're called upon. There's a difference between persistence and annoyance. And there's also a difference between, you know, taking initiative and not staying in your lane. And like I stepped out of my lane, you know what I mean? I stepped out of my lane 1 or 2 times and I was put back in place, and it was like, okay, just learn how to pace yourself a bit, you know?
How do you step out your lane? Can I get into that? Just to try to create the image.
Just, I mean, I don't know if it's I can't think of anything like totally specific, but I say like, just thinking that because, all right, now I get opportunity to work directly with the artist, but I'm still not understanding protocol. So even though I'm working with the artist, there's a person. So Big Face Gary was like, Big Face Gary, I credit him for a lot of my success because he was the person who, he was in the office. He was Dame Dash's childhood friend and big childhood friend. And he just was like, yo, I want you to come help me do stuff. And it was certain times where, because I had direct access to the artist, I would stop like using protocol and going through him. And I should like, you know, I should have went through him in certain instances. And because I didn't, it basically put me in a position where it was like, you're doing too much, you know? So it's like, fall back a little bit, learn how to chill, and then we'll bring you back on. So I went through that a few times.
Damn. No, it's interesting because it's sometimes the lessons that really come and get us back harder, and we just kind of know our place after that. So definitely. Cool. Right. So after the dissolution of Roc-A-Fella, Dame Dash goes a separate way, Jay-Z goes a separate way. Where does that leave Wayno?
Oh man, that leaves Wayno with going back into a regular job, trying to jump back in the streets again a little bit lightly.
Did you have to humble yourself as well? Because after being at Rockefeller, like the complete,
there was no Instagram. Nobody would believe it. Like I could tell a million stories. When I was 20 years old, I was in the studio with Beyonce. You know what I mean? 21 years old, I was around Beyonce and Jay-Z. I was around Kanye West before anybody knew who Kanye West was. Like, there's no pictures to corroborate that. So it's like, for me, it was a very, very big blow because the way that they built, Rockefeller was really built on like a family system. You know, it's built on like a system where they basically, and not that they did anything wrong, but it was embedded in us that, like, if you made it here, then you are our family. So like, it's basically like, you know, if the top people split up, what are you left to do? You left to figure it out for yourself. And I wasn't as savvy in business. I just really wanted a job. So I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do. So it kind of led me back into, you know, I had to go get a regular job again. And then I had to humble myself to go get a regular job because I thought I would never have a regular job. And then I had to kind of recreate myself and figure out what my next steps was going to be.
How did you begin by recreating yourself? What kind of things
well,
were you doing?
After a bit, I kind of accepted, like I really accepted, I accepted the fact that at the moment that I would never be in the music industry again. Like I just was like, you know what, that was cool, but this is never gonna happen for me again. And I don't want to say I accepted that. That's what I accepted at the moment. And then like going and getting a regular job, and I dropped out of high school, so I didn't attain like academic education that would put me in a place to thrive. So I was like getting by on whatever job I could get, and then sitting at a desk 8 hours of a day, it put me in a position where I was like, this is not my fate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not what I want for myself. So I was like, you know what? I had a friend of mine at this time. I still was working with some of the artists that were on Rockefeller, and you know, then that fell apart because Jay-Z had left Def Jam and he started Roc Nation. So it was like, now they don't have a situation. And I only thought that I would have a situation if somebody else had a situation, not that I could create my own. Yeah. So what I did was
you created your own situation.
Yeah, but it was not easy. Like, cause my next thing that I did after all of that, I didn't even try music. I tried to get into fashion and like streetwear.
And how did that go?
It went pretty good, but yeah. I really feel like, I'm not gonna lie, it went pretty good because so I came up with an idea. Like I had a job working at a television station, and I was there for like 6 years. I was there for like 6 years, and then I got laid off from there. And it was like, you know, I had a 401k, and I know you about to ask, how did you even get into a television station?
Yeah, it just seems like you're always in the right places. That kind of just helped to correlate later down the road.
Well, what happened was so this what happened. I had got a after the whole the music industry thing fell apart for me. I had got a I still had, you know, mailroom experience, so that was the only thing I could really do. So I applied for other mailroom jobs. I had got one mailroom job working at a pharmaceutical company, and then it was a temp agency, and then the other job I had got was working at a television station doing like kind of like the same services, but it was like on call. The only time they would just call me and be like, yo, this guy's gonna be out, so you could come in. So I ended up getting a full-time job at the television station, but then I get laid off. So when I get laid off,
laid off a lot. Where do you get laid off a lot?
First, I did, but it was like when you get laid off, it's really not your fault. It's like they just cutting back. Like, I'm just a number on a piece of paper.
You're not fucking up the job, basically.
I didn't mess up. I didn't fuck up nothing. Okay. It's just like, yo, we going, you know, we got to cut back. So what happened was I get laid off, and then it's like I have, you know, my 401k. It was like maybe $5,000. It wasn't too much money. I was like, you know what? I wanted to make. I said, you know what? I want to make T-shirts. I had this idea one day, like I want to make T-shirts to match my sneakers. So I did. I took my 401k. I bought a computer. I bought you know, some software, and then I bought I took a business class, and it took me a year before I sold one T-shirt because I wanted to get my mind right. I did that for a little bit, but it wasn't really. I mean, it was working, but the amount of time it took for me to print shirts versus the amount of time it took me to, like, I was marketing them. By the time I sold them, I was only getting the money I spent back, so I was never profiting.
What kind of tools were you using to get almost business savvy and getting your mind right? What tools were you using?
My tools was really wanting to get out of the projects. I was living in the projects. So yeah, that was my tools. But not only that, I would get around like like-minded people. So I had reached out to this guy who had did some stuff for me on the digital side when I was working with a few artists after Roc-A-Fella, and he knew how to do Photoshop. So I had him, you know, I would tell him this is how I want a design to be, and he would make the design. You know, like I'd be like, yo, I want it like this, and then he would do it. So I was reading a lot around that time. Like I read a lot of different books. You know, I did it not only within my faith, but I started studying like Buddhism, just to learn about, like, you know, I just was. I'm not like one type of person, like, you know, because I come from the hood, and I never wanted to look at the hood as like the only thing I could be. So I would like read about stuff that's like that nobody in the hood knows about, you know. So I would have like random facts about shit that none of my peers knew, because I just wanted to educate myself because I didn't finish school.
Did changing your circle of friends and peers make a huge impact into your life?
Absolutely. But I think a lot of, like, you know, I had this conversation with one of my friends, and he went to prison for like 15 years, right? And he just came home like 2 years ago, and he was telling me about how when we was younger, and I forgot about it. He was telling me how, you know, once he seen me doing some of the stuff that I had no business doing, he was telling me like, yo, you shouldn't be hanging out with these dudes. You should be doing this. But around this time is when he catches a charge that sends him to jail for a long time. So I had like different people who saw stuff like I couldn't even see in myself, saw in me, that made me like, that strengthened me a bit. You know, when you're a kid and, you know, people, you don't really see much for yourself. You need people to tell you that you're capable of something, because that might be all you really need to spark you to really go. So that was big for me at the time. But, you know, while I was doing the clothing line stuff, I got discouraged. I got, you know, because it wasn't happening as fast as I wanted it to. I got like I got Nipsey Hussle to wear my stuff. I got Smoke Dizza to wear my stuff. I used like all of
Was
my
that from a
like,
personal connection, or was that kind of a grafting means?
well, my connection to Nipsey came from my friend Smoke Dizza. Smoke Dizza was my childhood friend, and we always used to talk about one day one of us is gonna get into this, you know. And what happened was, a lot of people don't know that when Nipsey, I met Nipsey in like 2007, 2008. He was coming up to New York, and I met him through Smoke Dizza. So he started working with a friend of mine, Karen Civil, and this is years later. And Karen was like, she called me one day. She knew I was doing my clothing line. She called me like, yo, Nipsey gonna do the Breakfast Club. Bring him my hat. Make sure it's blue if you got one. So when I come to the Breakfast Club that day, and I had a good relationship with the Breakfast Club, just meeting them through people. So I always had like an open access door. So I go to the Breakfast Club, and Nipsey's there. He remembered who I was, and he said, oh, you doing a clothing line now? I'm like, yeah. So I gave him a hat. He took like 20 pictures in my hat. And from that one picture, I mean, he wasn't the Nipsey that everybody grew to know now, but at that time, it's still like, he still had a following. So like, I was able to sell like a few hats off of him just taking one picture, you know?
That's crazy.
I had a lot of people wear my stuff.
Where did the clothing line end up a year down the line after that then?
It just, you know what it was? I had it, so I asked one time, like Angela Yee is a really good friend of mine as well, and I was having a conversation with her.
Mentioning all these names that are like some of the biggest people we have now, like it's nothing, like, oh yeah.
But because you want to know why, to me, I wouldn't say it's nothing. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, for me, it's just like that's my friend. So like, so me and her, I was with her one day, and I told her, I said, yo, like, I feel like I'm not doing nothing right. I was like, I'm doing all of these different things. I was a brand ambassador. I became a brand ambassador for Reebok. I was hosting shows like at a venue on the side. I was doing all these things, and she said, I think your problem is that you're doing a lot of things, but you're not doing one thing great. And she was like, if you could do, she said it, she's like a jack of all trades and master of none. She said, if you could take and do one thing really, really good, everything else that you want to do is going to happen for you, but you got to be able to do that one thing.
When she said that, what did you think that one thing was in your head?
Getting back into music.
Wow.
Because my passion, that's what my passion was. Like the whole time that I'm telling you, I worked for Rockefeller, was around all these famous people. I didn't make no money. Like it was basically like going to college, you know, like it was like going to college. A lot of people I know, they've gone to college and they might have took out tons of student loans and all of that. But the thing that carried them on what they got in college was relationships, you know? So that's what Rockefeller was for me, like relationships. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to get back into I'm gonna try to do something. And then one of my producers, a producer that was a friend of mine, he asked me like one day, he's like, yo, I want you to manage me. And I was like, for real? And he was like, yeah. And I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to do that. And he was like, yo, you already do management, you never got the credit for it. And I was like, all right, I gave it a shot. And then you know, that's what kind of worked.
So what do you think, looking back, what do you think was the one pivotal relationship that you made that has been probably one of the biggest impacts?
The relationship that I made, that was one of my most pivotal impacts. Yeah. Damn, that's tough, because it's like I got like 8 of them that was like,
or a couple.
Well, I'll say, like, you know, like Angela Yee, me building with her. Like, the thing about her is, like, she doesn't care about, like, even me mentioning her, she don't care about me giving her credit for that. Like, she just wanted, like, she as a friend just wanted me to do what I set out to do. I say, like, Lenny S, like, everybody knows him on the gram as Kodak Lens, you know?
Yeah.
He was a person that we worked at Rockefeller together. He's, you know, a couple of years older than me, but I was always able to maintain my relationship with him. Even I'm looking in the comments, B-Dot, like, B-Dot is another person, like, who he, you know, as one of my peers, he just was a good friend to me. Like, I met B-Dot going to like an industry event, but he was one of the people who, you know, when I was managing artists, like, was telling me like, yo, you doing good. Like, you know, you need people to root you on. If that's why, you know, when you run in track, your family's allowed to be on the side and
Yeah.
yell at you, because you need people like that to keep you going, you know? So I got tons of relationships. I can't pinpoint one, but I just say, like, anybody who's my true friend know how they've helped me.